studio with me today, Father Traynor has decided to come back.
It's always good to be with you, Renee.
Again. So Father Scott Traynor is the vicar for lay and clergy formation for the diocese, and he is here with us today to talk about something some of you may have heard about in your parishes. It's called the Synod on Synodality.
Synod on Synodality, yes.
And what that means, I think we all would like to know, because this is actually really important. This sounds really boring and like something no one needs to know about, but it's actually really important. And I'm glad Father Scott has decided to come and tell us about it, because I think it's something we all need to understand. Mm-hmm. So please, Father Scott, help us understand this. So will you tell us first?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll say a few things and then please ask me more questions.
If you would tell us for sure, what is the Synod on Synodality and what does synodality mean, for heaven's sake?
So in the history of the church, a synod is a regional gathering of the bishops of the church to talk about matters of importance for that region of the church. Okay. So
when you say a region of the church, are you talking about like a geographical region?
Yeah, it could be like the bishops of Europe gather.
Okay.
Or,
So kind of like the one that's going on in Germany right now, for instance. There's a synod going on there. Okay.
They are having all the bishops in that nation are gathered together. They've been on this synodal process for some time now.
Okay. Yeah.
And it hasn't necessarily given synods the best reputation in the world.
That's very true.
It's been challenging, let's just say. So anyways, that's what a synod has been. And the Synod on Synodality. So the Second Vatican Council called for a standing synod of the bishops of the world.
Okay.
So with the Holy Father, the Pope in Rome, they have this 3-year process by which on regular scheduled meetings, they gather representatives of bishops from different regions of the world to gather together to talk about matters of importance.
Okay?
And some people, I don't know if our listeners would be familiar with this, but I've been involved in priestly formation, a lot of my priesthood. So, for example, after the synods meet on a topic, like there was a synod on the family, there was a synod on vocations, there was a synod on priestly formation. There's been a synod on a lot of different topics. And St. John Paul II, towards the end of his papacy, did a series of synods of regional areas of the world, the Synod on Asia, the Synod on Oceania, and other Synod on the Americas. And then very often this is a series of meetings over years that culminates in, representative bishops from every part of the world or that part of the world that they're focused on, gathering together to talk about matters of importance, either a topic or just the general mission of the church and pastoral care of people. And very often, after all their deliberations, they create a final document that is presented to the Holy Father, and the Holy Father can and has often then taken that input and collaboration and conversation and written a magisterial document, which are called Postsynodal apostolic exhortations. How do you like that?
That is awesome. I was going to ask you that, like what comes out of this? And there's usually is a document, but not always.
Most often there has been.
Okay.
Then that's the teaching office of the Holy Father, having heard through this kind of giant conversation that's been going on, to speak as the universal pastor of the church on this matter of importance. So, for example, the document that is like the charter for priestly formation is something called Pastoris Dabo Vobis, I will give you shepherds. That was a post-synodal apostolic exhortation, the Pope's document after one of these synod processes on the priestly formation. And it is really important in the life of the church.
Sure.
Now, other final documents have not been, as important and, practically applicable as that, but they are all significant exercises, those after synod documents that the Pope puts out, significant experiences of his teaching and leading of the church.
Right. So then it seems weird to me that it's called Synod on Synodality, because that just is bizarre to someone who actually is something about the English language, and it just seems weird. So please explain. Bill's laughing.
I'll do my best.
I know something about the English language. I do speak it, and it sounds weird. I've sent Father Scott over the edge. I'm sorry.
Really it's good. It's a great question, because I think a lot of people have it, right? And, Pope Francis has really been one of the themes that he comes back to again is the church has to be less self-referential. right?
Right.
And Synod on Synodality sounds to a lot of people, and it did, full disclosure, to my ears when I first heard about it, as kind of like an eye roll. Like, is this a meeting about meetings? Is that what we're doing?
That's
like,
what
really?
it sounds
That sounds
like.
very self-referential.
Yes.
But if you actually read the document, so the Vatican put out something called a vademecum. It's just a series, it's a practical guide for this whole process.
Okay.
So actually any of our viewers, if they really want to dive into it,
Right.
can go find that on the Vatican's website, on our own sfcatholic.org/synod. There's a link to that document.
Yep.
And some other resources to, if people want to do a deeper dive into any of this.
And it's
But
actually fairly easy reading because I've read some of it. It's not complicated.
That's right. And it's so it's not, it's, when I first heard it, I'm like, oh, this is very self-referential. It's like a meeting about meetings. But in fact, the subtitle of it is Communion, Participation, and Mission.
Okay.
So really, how do we have not just, so the Synod has always been the Synod of bishops,
Right.
that are sort of discussing and advising the Pope on these matters of importance. And the Pope's like, well, we want to involve the broader church in this. So this current effort, the Synod on Synodality, is a worldwide effort. The church has never done anything like this.
Right.
And basically the Holy Father has asked every diocese to animate a conversation in their own diocese, by whatever means fit best for that diocese, to talk about these matters of importance. How do we foster greater communion in the church among people who are members of the church? Greater participation so that people are actively engaged in the mission of the church, right? Communion, participation, and mission. And those are really important things, and they're worth talking about.
Right.
So that's not self-referential. That's not a meeting about meetings. This is like, hey, how do we incorporate not just bishops and like priests or religious, but lay faithful, and actually, how do we hear about people like, it's often said that the second largest denomination of Christians in our country is former Catholics, right?
I have heard that.
Right. It's like Catholics, former Catholics, and then the Baptists, I think, are number 3. And so, like, are we reaching, as, the Holy Fathers often talk about, going out to the peripheries?
Right.
What are we doing to reach out to the people to understand what their experience is? How did they lose contact with the church? And is there anything we can do to be more proactive in inviting them and helping them return to the faith that they've lost touch with? Right.
And this is why it's so important for us to actually pay attention to this, because I think almost every family has someone in their family who maybe has left the church. And wouldn't you love for them to come back? Now, I'm not saying that this thing is going to bring them back, but this, the way I understand it, will help us start to maybe understand somewhat things we can do, or at least what's happening now, so we can say, okay, well, that's not working, so let's change gears. Okay, so then we know why we're doing this then as a worldwide church, because the Pope, the bishops want to hear from everybody.
So, as many people as possible.
Right. Yeah, obviously not everybody's going to do it, but as many people as we can convince. So you take us through some of the steps of the process that we're doing here.
In our diocese, specifically?
Well, and like,
in general,
where does it come from so far?
Well, so in September of this year, this instruction came from the Vatican. They'd been talking about this for a few months before that. Kind of word was put out, and then they gave the instructions like, what are we actually asking each diocese, each local church to do? Right. And it's very open-ended. They gave a number of like, hey, here are the themes: participation, communion, and mission that we wanted to ask important questions about. And they listed a bunch of questions, but they said, hey, you can ask these questions or some selection of these questions or other questions that are important in the life of your church. Right. So there is a part of this that the process itself is valuable. Just like, hey, how would we in our diocese, and every diocese is invited to ask this question, what could we do that really invites people to think about these matters of importance for the exercise of our Catholic faith in our area, and to involve them in an important conversation around those things. And just that, kind of the infrastructure that goes into that and undertaking that process is important. So September, that came out. They gave a timeline, and basically every diocese is asked to do its consultation. So these could be through meetings or survey or on social media, however you can engage people and invite their responses.
What do you think will work in your diocese in particular?
With a hope that it's a way to help people have an encounter with Christ and the community of faith. So it's not just like, oh, here's
answer
a survey.
These questions.
Yeah, answer these questions, and like
I'm
a
glad
pollster,
because
right?
that's like meh.
Yeah. So it really is meant to be itself an encounter with Christ and the community of faith.
Right.
Whether those are people who are actively involved or kind of at the peripheries or uninvolved even, to invite them to prayerfully consider these matters. Okay. So they've asked every diocese to undertake that process. And by the beginning of April, see, I got March, April, yes, by April 1st, to sum up, what did you learn? What did you do? How was the experience for you and the people who participated? Are there any things that you learned from the conversations that happened at the diocesan level? Then every diocese is going to send that report or summary to the Conference of Bishops. And then every Conference of Bishops around the world is going to do a summary of their summaries for the eventual 2023 gathering of bishops for the Synod of Bishops on Synodality in Rome in 2023.
Okay. So if every diocese is asking different questions or doing this differently, how are they going to get anything to synthesize together? I'm a little, that seems a little weird too. Or I think a lot of us are the same. I mean, there's different areas, yes, but I think ultimately people are people and there are going to be a lot of commonalities in what comes out.
I think that's true. And what the Vatican has asked is that they kind of broke down these three main topics of communion, participation, and mission into 10 individual themes.
Okay.
And whatever conversation, whatever questions or topics you arrange your diocesan conversation around, they want you to try to organize that under one of those 10 themes.
Right.
So our effort in the Diocese of Sioux Falls is really focused on mission.
Right.
Because we've been doing this whole effort to build
a
culture of lifelong Catholic missionary discipleship through God's love.
Right.
And for me, this was part of my conversion to this whole process, I would say, from my initial
You're like, I can get hold of this now.
Is I really saw this opportunity like, wow, we want to be able to engage as many people as possible in our parishes and in our communities where our parishes are located in reflecting on like, hey, how can we advance this diocesan vision more? And it fits beautifully with what this sort of one of the three main themes of mission of the whole worldwide synod. So I thought it was a really nice kind of dovetail and providential thing that this is happening right now. It hits at a nice spot in what's evolving in our own diocese.
Right. So is there a goal for our particular survey for our diocese?
Yeah, just so our listeners know, one of the main efforts we're doing is we've put together a survey, which will go live for responses on February 1st. Right. And people can preview it starting January 15th. They go to sfcatholic.org/synod, SYNOD. They can click here and see the survey questions. Right. But we're encouraging people to take it online. We have an online survey where you can respond to these questions. And we have some kind of like scale questions and then some other open-ended questions that people can
And the way I understand it, they don't have to answer every single question. No, so you don't have to be intimidated by the number of questions. Pick out the ones you want to answer.
Exactly, especially for the long form ones. Right. The scale ones don't take a lot of time.
Right.
But the way we arranged it was under each word of our diocesan mission statement. So there's questions about lifelong, like a little blurb on like, hey, what does this mean? And a scriptural touchstone for that part of our mission statement. And then some questions that try to unfold that, both on a scale question, which don't take long to answer, and then some open-ended questions that people can respond to all of them or some of them or one of them, anything that they want. We're very happy to receive whatever responses people are willing to give. Right. And to learn something. So what is our aim? Aim in our diocese is really like, look, to build mission, participation, communion, and mission in our diocese, to build a culture of lifelong Catholic missionary discipleship through God's love. There's about like 10,000 really good things we could be doing. Right. Literally. So our hope in the Chancellor's Office and the Office of Discipleship and Evangelization is from this survey, can we really identify, hey, here are some clear priorities of the many things that could be done that would make the most positive impact for advancing that mission for where we are right now and like in the next 3 years. And I think it's important, the Holy Father's desire is that this effort throughout the world isn't like a one and done thing. Right. That this starts people thinking and cultivating a habit where you can have a structure for important conversations and involving people's inspiration and reflections, because people think about these things in their own families. Like you were saying, like, I have people in my family who left the church. What can we do about that?
because it seems impossible, but there are ways to deal with it.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah.
And God is raising up in people's hearts and minds the inspirations that we need for the mission of the church to flourish in our East River Diocese.
Right.
So that's what we're really trying. This is like an exercise in discernment, like what's on people's hearts and minds. And we tried to create these survey questions to get people to reflect and receive those inspirations from God. And then what are we hearing? Right. It's not that every response is going to be like the solution, but I bet we will see some really clear patterns and themes emerging from people's responses that can really help inform our diocesan level discernment of what of the main good things we can be doing and are doing. Where should we really be most impactfully setting our priorities?
Right. So now, as we're going through this survey and everything and even chatting in our parishes or whatever, I think it can be really easy for us as humans to be like, well, I don't like this thing, so I'm going to bring this up because this is really grating on me all the time. So there are some things we need to be careful about to avoid. And I know you didn't, we don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but one of them is we want to avoid leading ourselves instead of being led by God. And I think that actually kind of encompasses all of them.
Yes.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Right. So we really want to listen to the heart of God.
Right.
But God speaks in the hearts of individuals, right? So it's really important, and we've had a prayer for this process. We're encouraging people to pray. It's a beautiful prayer to the Holy Spirit. You can also find that at our sfcatholic.org/synod site. You can download the bookmark, or it's a beautiful prayer to the Holy Spirit. It's actually the prayer that was used at every session of the Second Vatican Council.
Oh, okay.
That's where that prayer came from.
Okay.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And really asking the Holy Spirit to guide our thoughts and reflections on these important questions.
Right.
So I'd encourage anyone who's engaging with the survey. The reason we put it out early before the responses go live is that people can take time with it and sit with it.
Yes.
Take some notes and pray and talk to their friends and family about it. And hey, what do you think? That would be the best thing, that it starts a conversation and prayerful reflection from as many people as possible in East River, South Dakota.
Yeah. I think that's...
So we really want to be obedient. We want to follow the inspirations that God is leading. So it really does need to be a prayerful encounter and not just like, well, finally, I'm going to pipe off about that thing.
Right.
And the other part of that, too, is it was really funny in the Vatican's own instructions. Like, this is not a referendum about your bishop or your pastor or, some
chancery.
Your local. Like, that's not what we're looking for. Right?
The carpet in your parish. No one cares.
Carpet, yes.
I mean, seriously.
Yes. Yeah, right. Not that those things are unimportant.
Right.
It's just not the focus of this effort.
Right.
Because details do matter. So it's really like saying, hey, and this is really, I would say, a diocesan exercise. It's a diocesan consultation. So it'd be best if people who are participating, they're thinking of like, hey, the Catholic Church in East River, South Dakota. How can we, what are the opportunities? What are we doing great as a church? How can we grow as a church? What is God asking of us in order to grow in lifelong Catholic missionary discipleship through God's love? What are the things that we can respond to? Thinking beyond just my parish, which is challenging because people's main experience of the church is like, the place I go to church on Sunday, in that community. And that is really important. But in terms of the Catholic Church, it's like a diocese has everything that the church has to offer in the most local area. Right. Not every parish can say that, right?
Right.
Because a parish doesn't have a bishop, for example. A parish doesn't form its own clergy, for example, and many, many other things, right? So, but a diocese is the fullness of the Catholic Church in a local geographic area. So that's really the kind of the level that these questions are aimed at. What is, how can we grow in our vision and communion participation and mission in East River, South Dakota?
Yeah.
Which is very different than the carpet wars in the sanctuary. Yes.
Or the music that's being played or whatever. Yes. Okay, we have a minute or two left. I'd love to hear one or two of the questions, but I want to make sure that you also get to say what else you want to say about it. So if there's a couple questions there, you can kind of give us an example of one or two of them. That would be great so people know what they might be looking at.
Yeah. So, for example, we organized our survey under each word of the vision. So lifelong Catholic missionary discipleship through God's love. Discipleship, for example, that's the heart of the vision.
Yeah.
all about the encounter with Jesus Christ. How am I experiencing him? What has been most impactful for me growing in the relationship with God that I enjoy today, whatever that is, right? And on the flip side, if I know people who have left the practice of their Catholic faith, what do I know about them? What have I heard has been a stumbling block for them, or how they lost contact with the faith? I think those are really important questions. At the end, like if we have a number of questions, again, people don't need to be intimidated. They can respond to anything that they want to, as much or as little as they'd like to.
Right.
But just at the end, hey, what do I wish the church would do more? You know?
Right. Oh, that's a great one.
Hey, what do I wish the church would do less? Right.
Yep.
And what do I think is the most important thing for the church, meaning or East River Diocese, to focus on in the next 3 years?
Yeah.
Like if we just got really thoughtful, prayerful responses just on those 3, this would be a huge benefit for the life of our local church. Yeah,
it would be. And that's really the goal, is to have something for us as a diocese to work with, to know where to go. Where do people want us to go? Because we aren't, here in the Chancery, we aren't just working for ourselves.
That's right.
Believe it or not, we're working for the diocese as a whole. So
that's right.
Yeah.
And it's not, and it's, this is one of the advantages of having structured it around our diocesan vision. Because it's not just like, well, we have no idea where we're going.
Right.
We're blessed to have a very clear vision and direction.
Yeah.
But there are, like I said, thousands of good ways to pursue that. But I really do believe we're going to get a good sense of, hey, what is God raising up in the reflections and understanding and inspirations and desires of our people that would be most impactful.
Good.
Which will advance the reality of our church in our local area.
And hopefully bring about holier people in our diocese, which is really holier, headed to heaven. That's all the stuff we want.
Yeah. The last thing I'd like to say about this is, this is really a call for all the baptized to live out their baptismal vocation, right? Every baptized person has a co-responsibility for the life and reality of the church. And I think it can be easy for people to have more of a kind of a, like we have with entertainment or shopping, with a kind of more of a consumer attitude, like, hey, is this suiting my needs?
Yes.
As opposed to, what is God asking me to do to make the mission of the church more a reality in my personal life, in my family, among my friends, in my community, in my parish, and even at the broader scale across our diocese.
Right.
That is something that is has room to develop, right? It's not overdeveloped in people's understanding, right? That's something we can really grow in a lot. And I think just this process, asking these important questions and asking people to really prayerfully reflect on them and discuss them with each other, itself just elevates that baptismal call to co-responsibility for the life and mission of the church. Everyone in their proper roles. The bishop has a different role than a married person, than a priest, than a religious. We all have our unique vocations that need each other for the church to flourish in her, in being the church and fruitfully undertaking her mission.
Right. Awesome. So thank you, Father Scott, for being here with us today. Again, the website to learn more about the Synod and to see a sample or to look at it's the actual survey that is at sfcatholic.org/synod, SYNOD. And you can take a look at it on February 1st for the whole month of February.
Yes.
You can take the survey online. I think you can do it on paper too. Your parishes will talk about that. But if you can do it online, that's most helpful.
Super helpful.
So thanks, Father Scott, for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Renee.
All right. Again, that is sfcatholic.org/synod to take a look at that survey. We hope you will all do that because it's really important for our diocese. That is it for us today. Hope you'll join us again next week for more Catholic Views.